the Primitive Patterns Podcast. It's time to live your mystery. All right, welcome back to the Primitive Patterns Podcast, boys. How we doing?
Good, man. Feeling good. Sun's out, shining. Good weekend. Good run yesterday. I think we're just ready to kind of have like a free-flowing conversation today. Not necessarily too much direction on the pod, but I think that's all right too. I know Luker wanted to kind of kick it off with something, so.
No, I didn't want to kick it off with something. We were just talking shit before this, and I was saying how I went to do the sound bath and breath work yesterday up at a really nice farm. And it was just, it's crazy how powerful that stuff is if you really go into it with an open mind. The power of like vibration and just breath work and being outside and hearing the sounds of nature. Like, you don't need to jump on a plane and go anywhere crazy to have a really profound internal experience that leaves you feeling very open and connected. It's just cool that I drove 25 minutes yesterday for.
Right. What was like the protocol that they were running at this retreat for the breathwork ceremony that you did yesterday?
It was like your classic, it's called like circular breathing. So similar to, I don't even want to say similar to holotropic.
Circular breathing is like there's no
pause between the inhale and the exhale. Right. And you can do it through your nose or you can do it through your mouth.
But it doesn't have to be necessarily like rapid, fast breathing. It's just conscious connected is another name for it.
I think that was the name for it. And it was like they had this little yurt set up in the middle of a farm field. And then the lady Justine was there with like her gongs, her sound bowls. What's the fucking didgeridoo? And like, fuck, man, it just, you lose yourself in an experience like that. And I think you understand the power of like sound and vibration and what that does to the human body. Like, the power of sound is undeniable.
Yeah, we've experienced that for sure. I think most people have experienced that even if they're unaware of it.
For sure.
Like when you think about, if you think back in your life, something as simple as music, like what certain songs have done for you in certain moments of your life, or like certain experiences with live music and how that's connected you with people around you, like the power of sound, of music, of rhythm, like whatever, vibration is so powerful.
Insanely powerful. And like a lot of people will laugh it off, but it's like, think of how many times you've been with people and there's live music, whether you're at a concert or rave, or you just have your headphones on, how connected and like just everyone has felt music completely shift their state.
Right
now, picture laying down, completely focused on your breathing, and you just hear gongs and didgeridoos and vibrations. And there was points I was feeling it work through my entire body.
So, and with this protocol, like how long was the breath work? Was it an hour? Was it 40 minutes?
Hour and a half.
And so at least by what the practitioner wanted you to do, was it the whole duration of conscious connected breathing? Like they wanted you to try your best to stay in that rhythm throughout the entire thing, or like were there breaks within it?
No, they said like to try and stay in that rhythm, but the person that facilitated it did a great job of saying like, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. Like if at any point you just want to completely breathe normally. So there was no pressure of like, all right guys, like you have to keep breathing, move. Like you see some of that shit where it's like, okay.
Yeah.
She was awesome.
Right. And
it was Tash, John's wife.
Yeah. Unreal. And we've experienced Tash's breath work in Mexico last year, and it was awesome. It was great. I know that, I don't know if it's like a fault of mine, but something that holds me back from experiencing, just like being open to the experience, is some of like the educational background that I have with learning about like the physiology of breath. And sometimes I think some practitioners of breathwork sessions provide wrong information about what they're doing, which I kind of have a bit of a problem with, because I don't necessarily, like if you're like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why, and here's what's happening in the body, and all those three things are actually aligned, then I'm like, okay, even if I don't necessarily feel the most comfortable with over breathing for 45 minutes, at least I know that this practitioner knows what they're talking about. They've educated themselves. They know that they're providing a safe space for you. And then I would be more open. But sometimes it's like this false narrative or this false information that they're providing of like, oh, you're going to oxygenate your body. And I know you've educated yourself on this too. But I think like when I'm doing that over breathing for 45 minutes, I'm thinking about what's actually going on. Simultaneously, I'm thinking about the information that the practitioner provided to me, which I know to at least like at a physiological level is false. And then I just don't allow myself to feel the experience fully because I'm in my head about the discrepancy there.
I think there's a lot of reasons why people don't allow themselves to experience something like what you just did fully. I think another big one too is just like you said, you had this super profound experience yesterday.
I don't even want to say that super profound, but I just had that like
You had a powerful experience yesterday, and you allowed yourself to fall into that experience and to actually receive it. Now, one thing to point out is that you take meditation, maybe seriously isn't the right word, but you practice meditation daily. And you have kind of put yourself in a position where you can go to something like what you went to yesterday with a fully open mind about the whole experience, and also having practiced meditation and being able to remain in a state that would allow you to experience something powerful. You can remain in that state for a long time. I think one thing to point out to people is that, one, going into something like that, you have to have a fully open mind about it. If you have any sort of just negative thought or kind of like laughing it off before you even are at that space, then it's probably not going to do a whole lot for you. But then also, it's a skill to be able to allow yourself to fall deep into like a meditative state like that with your breathing, and allow yourself to actually lay there for, like you said, it was an hour and a half. To be able to lay there for an hour and a half and try your best to focus on that pattern of breathing and feel immersed in the sound and the vibration. Like, if it's your first time meditating and you try to go to something like that for an hour and a half, the chances of you coming out of that and being like, oh, that was amazing, I just fell right into it for an hour and a half, is very low.
I would agree to a certain extent, but just through my own experience, I would maybe have a bit of a rebuttal to that. So I remember being in it was just out of high school. So I had I was going to school for firefighting at that time. Like, I didn't have a background with educating myself about the human body. And I had some fucked up low back issues. You guys remember that? My low back was torched multiple times a year where I couldn't get out of bed for 24 hours. And I remember being desperate, super down about myself. Mom had that friend who was a Reiki healer. So at the time, I had done chiro. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I've done chiro, I've done massage, I work out, I eat well, and my low back is still rinsed. So I went to this Reiki healer, and I just I think it came from a spot of maybe desperation and some form of being naive to what she was doing. But I knew this woman for a long time. I trusted her and I believed in what she was doing. During the Reiki 1 hour session, I wouldn't say anything too crazy happened, but I believed that it was going to work. And I remember that night, me and you were sleeping in the same bed. And I remember telling you this, I woke up and I felt like my energy was connected to yours. Remember me saying that? That was well before I had looked into any breath work stuff, looked into any psychedelic stuff. And I just think me being in that spot of being desperate, needing something to help me and believing that what she was going to do was going to help me. It didn't take away my back issues, but I remember feeling that energy exchange with you that night laying in bed. And I was like, this is fucking nuts. And I think if I went into that Reiki session being this is bullshit, super skeptical, then I wouldn't have been open to receive that.
Yeah, but see, you had a massive reason to not go into it like that.
I think a lot of people that go to breathwork ceremonies,
not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but a lot of there's definitely people that go that are dealing with things in their life.
Of course. I'm just saying that in order to experience something like an hour and a half long breath work with sound healing, and to really get the fullness out of that experience, you do need to fully not even believe in what's going on, but be open to receiving whatever is going to come from that session.
Right.
And if you're closed off about it, and sometimes having something like a major low back issue or an injury or illness can drive you into just being, like you said, desperate and okay, I want this to help. I want to experience what these people are telling me I could experience from something like this. Or sometimes it just comes down to you've been practicing meditation for a long time and you felt what just simple 15-minute eyes closed breathing meditation can do. So you know that there's power in
with
what,
it.
yeah, you're familiar. There's power in what you're about to engage with. But
Do you find, Luker, that you ever have like going into the breathwork session? Because again, I know you've educated yourself quite a bit on that topic of like nervous system regulation, whatever you want to call it. Did you have any like hesitation or feeling of like skepticism towards it? Or were you like, I know Tash, I know she's a loving, caring person. She's amazing at what she does. And I'm fully open to this.
Yeah, I go in completely fully open. And I've actually worked with people in that space who maybe actually don't understand the physiology in depth and they get things wrong, but they've held space for people for years. They are connected to the practice and they're holding space in a very safe way. And I think you can have all the knowledge in the world, but nothing can replace your own internal experiences that you've had and holding space for people. So even though I have like the sciencey background and I understand a lot of it, I don't care because I'm just like, even my experience yesterday, like there's no physiology that can tell you why I had that experience.
Right.
So I personally, for me, if I were to hold space for like a breath ceremony, I would talk about the physiology, but I wouldn't even get into it in that much depth because I think for a lot of people, they can have like ignorance is bliss. And I wouldn't want people in their head too much.
And most people don't really even care that much.
Yeah,
They're
they
not
don't give a
going to a
shit.
breathwork session. They're not leaving a breathwork session being like, I learned all about the Bohr effect today and how, respiration affects nutrient delivery into the tissue. Like nobody cares. They want to leave the breathwork session being like, holy fuck, I feel amazing. That was incredible. I experienced something maybe I wasn't ready for, or maybe I was hoping for, and like it came to fruition, whatever. Like that's why people go to breathwork. And I also agree, a woman like Tash, she's so loving, she's so open, she cares about the people that are at her breathwork session. She's ran countless of them, and she's also like gone into the trenches with trying to figure things out about herself and done like a lot of work on herself. So even if she doesn't necessarily have a sciencey background, it doesn't fucking
No, it doesn't matter at all. The one thing that I will say with that space is I think there is some like charlatans, and I think understanding the changes in pH and how that can influence like traumatic memories coming up due to cellular memory of changes in pH during a time when you were scared and your breath was shallow, or you were like, your body remembers that at a cellular level, and that's just truth. Your body really remembers changes in pH. So I think if there is someone going to a ceremony of that nature and they've experienced a real trauma, like not like, oh, your dad spanked you once, but like something serious, I think it can invoke that thing coming up.
Right.
So you need to have things in place for how that's dealt with on the other side.
It's almost like that saying of like in the strength conditioning world, like any dummy can make somebody tired. Like you can go to any coach and they can just make you feel, they can literally make you puke within 30 minutes if they want to. And that doesn't mean that they know what they're doing just because they were able to make you tired. Any breathwork practitioner can make you lay down, hyperventilate for fucking 40 minutes and feel some crazy shit, and then try to convince you that it was releasing trauma or whatever they want to say it was. So
the thing is that that's the thing, is that it can actually release and bring that to the surface. So it's on the educator and the person leading that group
but it can also stunt oxygen delivery to the brain and just make you feel nuts. Like you don't have to be somebody that's experienced deep trauma to get something crazy out of that experience. If you're laying on the floor, hyperventilating as if you just got chased by a bear, but nothing's actually going on.
No, but what I'm saying is like an actual traumatic memory coming up that has occurred when that change in pH happened in the body, and at a cellular level, your body remembers that and brings it up. Unless you've experienced something serious, no, like you might have a crazy trip out, like, whoa,
that's what I mean. Like you might feel tingly, lightheaded, you might pass out, you might start to feel really cold or really warm. Like you may have these sensations that you are not used to. And then just based off of that alone, you experiencing that in a setting where there's a professional in the practice of breath work, and they've told you things about what's going to happen and told you why. And so you can just experience crazy things. What I'm saying is through that, even if you're not holding like a deep trauma, right?
Yeah, you have to, that's why you have to understand the basic physiology of it. And then from there, have your own internal experience.
But you also just have to like be in it for the right reasons. Like, I feel like as bad as this sounds, I feel like there's some breathwork practitioners out there that just want, it's like when you go to a yoga class and then like the yoga teacher puts on like the saddest song they can possibly find at the end of the class because they actually want to see people like get really emotional and cry because it makes them feel good about what they were able to provide.
Yeah.
I feel like that could happen in breathwork sessions
that's
too,
a whole nother conversation. But yeah, there's definitely, when you look at like breath work, psychedelics, any of these things, there are people in those spaces that are doing some weird, funky, not good things.
It's like any space though. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like in health, like you can have some nutritionist who is getting people to lose weight so quickly, but they're completely fucking their metabolism in the process and they're not actually doing them good.
Yeah.
Or the personal trainer that, like you said, can get somebody tired in 30 minutes, but after working with that trainer for 2 weeks, the person being trained is now injured, right? So whether that's like breath work, meditation, psychedelic journeys, nutrition, fitness, like you just have to make sure that, and like you said, you don't have to be the top educator in the field and tell people every little thing to do with health and working out and nutrition. You just have to care about the person, have enough information in your head that you can do it in a safe way, and then just really give a fuck about what you're giving to people.
I think for a lot of people, like a good litmus test for if you're working with someone with nutrition, with workouts, with meditation, with psychedelics, with breath work, with anything, is if they aren't open to looking at something or being like, oh yeah, like this is the way that I do it, but also this way works, this way works. I know a guy that does it this way. I have a client that's had really good results this way. If they're like, no, this is my way, this is what we do.
Yeah, then you know right
Just
there, you know, like put your wallet back in your pocket and fuck right off because
big time.
There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat in whatever it is, nutrition, fitness, any form of health. There's 1,000 ways to do it. So if somebody comes to you being like, here's my method, this is the one way to do it.
Yeah.
That's when you know to like run for the door.
That's even like yesterday at the breath work. The woman leading it was just like, this is my way. Like, this is what's worked for me. This is what I'm trained in. This is what I do. There's this way, there's this way, there's this way, there's this way. I have nothing wrong with any of them. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like if someone comes to me and is like, you know, should I do this or should I do this exercise? It's like context.
Right.
So if the person that is trying to lead you in any way in your health doesn't give you an answer based around context, then you're probably working with someone who's a fucking idiot.
For sure. And it also comes down to like how they're delivering, because there might be somebody that specializes in one form of exercise, right? Myofascial meridians. They care so much about that. That's what they've done. And if you go to them and they say, hey, this is my specialty, this is what has worked for me and it's worked for a bunch of other people, I'm definitely not saying that this is the only way to do it. However, this is where I'm most educated,
of course,
and most confident to deliver you the best service I can. That's totally fine. We're not saying like you got to be an expert in all fields.
No.
Like if you specialize in something, that's fine. It's your delivery of like, are you saying that this is the only way to do it? Or are you saying this is the way that you feel confident in delivering me a service that's going to make me better?
For sure. 1,000%. I'm just make sure the person has an open mind. Like, because you need a method and you need a way of operating so that you have a system, but just make sure they're not like, this is the only system that could ever possibly work.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I do. This is what I'm good at. This is how I've helped people. All these other things might work too, but.
Yeah. And hey, you can also make the analogy of like, you look at the best athletes in the world, you look at Sidney Crosby, LeBron James, none of these guys were like the best at one single thing. They had a vast toolbox of ways to get things done. And I also think that's an amazing way to approach coaching too. Mm-hmm. Like you also don't need to be the specialist to help people.
Fuck no.
Like you can be a generalist and you can just be as long as you have that underlying passion of wanting to help people and doing everything you can to make sure you're doing it in a safe manner, and then the world's your oyster. Like learn as much as you can from as many people as you can and as many different fields as you can. You don't have to be that specialist, but
I actually think like
be a good guy, you know?
Yeah. I think for coaching people, being a generalist is better. Like sure, if you want to train LeBron James, you better be the best trainer in the
Better
world.
be the basketball guy.
Just be that guy.
Yeah.
And like but if you're working with like day-to-day people like we are,
General population.
yeah, which is most of the world, like they need a bit of help in nutrition. They need a bit of help with stress. They ask you a question about this or that. Like you should have a good toolbox where you're like, okay, it's not just the workout you need. You actually need a little bit of help here, a little bit of help there. And being able to facilitate that is huge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's in the name, general population. So if you can just be generally educated on multiple lifestyle factors like sleep, nutrition, and exercise and whatever, as long as you're doing it from a grounded spot of good intention to actually help people, and you're not just trying to be this like social media influencer that's trying to make a quick buck on selling these programs or whatever. Like if you're doing it from a wholehearted place, then most people live fucking crazy busy lives. They don't have time to educate themselves about, or they've chose not to, about any form of health. So what you're going to know, as long as you're a good person, you're passionate about helping people, you don't have to be Andrew Huberman.
God, no.
Or Andy Galpin. Those guys are beauties, but you don't have to be those guys to help people.
Yeah.
Right?
And another thing on like the topic of helping people, that like as I get older and I have more experiences of like in my own vehicle, I think for people, like have an open mind. When it comes to your health, have a completely open mind and try things. Because like sometimes people go to an energy healer and it completely works for them. Sometimes people do breath work and that really helps them in a certain way. Sometimes people eat carnivore and that helps them. So like, don't take anything as gospel, but also don't be afraid to try things as long as it's not putting your health at risk.
Yeah. You need to breathe high quality air, and you need to figure out how to breathe properly, like manage your state. You need to drink high quality water, and you need to prioritize sleep. Those are 3 universal things. Outside of that, like however you want to do your nutrition, your exercise, your meditation practice, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you. There's those principles of like sleep, hydration, and respiration, air. But outside of that,
And I'll say just like high quality food.
yeah, of course.
I gotta throw
Yeah,
that one
you can't
out
be like, you can't be that if it fits your macros guy. It's like, oh, I'll have a bag of Skittles and a fucking whatever Reese's cup because I got 450 calories left on my day. Like, maybe don't be that guy. Good stuff, boys.
All right. See you guys on the next epi.
The Primitive Patterns Podcast. It's time to live your mystery.